I'm living my best life. Yeah, yeah. I'm living my best life. Made a couple M's, you know. I said, I'm living my best life. I'm
And
living my
welcome,
best
friends,
life.
to Kiki's Keys to Unlocking Your Best Life, where we are sharing stories of people who have been through their worst and are now living their best. Here on KVOI The Voice on 10:30 a.m. in Tucson. You can also catch our website at www.kikiskeys.life or on YouTube or Facebook. You can search Kiki's Keys. I am so excited today. It is such a lovely day, and I am here with a lovely individual. His name is Kelly Thrush, and he is the founder of Gratitude and Grace Foundation. Gratitude and Grace Foundation is dedicated to supporting families navigating the challenges of transplant recovery and substance abuse. And he's with us today sharing more about his own personal story of substance abuse and being a transplant recipient, and their upcoming gala on September 28th, 2025.
Nope, this year.
Oh, sorry, I just saw a
look at
typo.
that misprint.
Forgive me, I misread that. 2024, definitely that's what it says. On September 28th, 2024 at the Westin La Paloma Resort and Spa. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. In 2025, boy, I would have been way out ahead of the game on that one.
Right, it kind of caught me off guard there.
No
Sorry.
worries. No worries. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, 2 weeks away is the gala.
Mhm.
How long have you had the organization?
Oh, boy. So officially about a year.
Okay.
It was been an idea of ours for a couple, 3 years now. But we got our 501c3 last summer.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. And this year, 2024, has really been the year that it started taking off. We started having events. We started raising money. We started helping families. So
Awesome.
this has been the year for it. The first year is us trying to figure out that we don't know what we're doing. This year's been much better.
It's a lot of trial and error
Yes,
getting it
ma'am.
off the ground. Yes, we've had a lot of people in these seats that either just starting nonprofits or have been running nonprofits for centuries, and everyone says it is always a lot of trial and error.
Absolutely.
Well, you started Gratitude and Grace Foundation yourself, both as someone in recovery
Mhm.
and who was a transplant recipient for a whole liver transplant.
Correct.
And tell us a little bit more about what got you to that point where you needed a liver transplant. What was going on in your life at that time?
Sure. Well, the crux of it all, I ran bars and restaurants for multiple years, probably 15 years really. And for those of us that have worked in the restaurant industry and the service industry, I mean, it's alcohol and drugs for that matter, but in my case, it was alcohol. It's part of the culture. And so especially running bars, I was up till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning almost every day, drinking beers and whatever else, and eating crappy foods, you know. So just not a terribly healthy lifestyle. And like any addiction, it started off as, well, yeah, it was a problem, but it didn't really negatively affect my life. And then it grew and grew and grew until finally in my mid-30s, excuse me, it was, it was a problem.
They say when you hit rock bottom is when you stop digging. When did you stop digging?
Boy, I think it was below rock bottom. I was headed even further. Really, the wake-up call for me really started on January 8th of 2018. I was moving furniture, or I should say. Jamie and I, Jamie's my wife now, who was with me at the time. We were just dating at the time. We were moving furniture for a buddy of ours, and I didn't feel well.
How old were you at this point?
38 at
Wow.
that point. Yeah, 38
Okay.
years old. And so, 38. I was just about 39. So anyhow, we were moving furniture, and I didn't feel well. And you could tell I didn't feel well because at that point, which was about noon, I'd only had like 2 drinks. So didn't feel good at all because that was not my
That was a low
MO.
consumption for you at that point.
Correct. At that point, it was every day. It was, multiple drinks right when I wake up in the morning to get rid of the shakes, get myself right, get rid of the sweats, all that good stuff. So I wasn't feeling well.
Were you recognizing in yourself that the drinking was a problem, or were you still in what they say, denial?
So there was definitely denial on how bad the problem was.
Okay.
I believe now in hindsight, I would have never admitted this back then. But I think I knew on some level for sure that I had an issue, and it was a
Yeah.
bad one. because the years prior to that, my first marriage had fallen apart. It has dissolved after 16 years. The relationships with my loved ones, specifically my kids, had dissolved. The only good thing going down at that particular time was my relationship with Jamie, who was, and as we get into the story, you'll see, she is the reason I am still alive. She was my advocate for me.
How did you two meet?
At work. We worked together at the time. We were friends. We knew each other. Matter of fact, if you ask her, she'll say she actually didn't like me in the first 3 or 4 months, which I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure I was awfully obnoxious because I was still drinking
you were
at that point.
drinking that heavily, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, but we don't see it in ourselves when we were like that.
No, I was funny, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was funny and
Everyone's
charming.
laughing
and
along.
Sure. Yeah, they're laughing. Maybe not along, but they're laughing.
Right.
So anyhow, on that Sunday afternoon, didn't feel well at all, and then I felt worse on that Monday. I'd gone to work and just didn't feel good. And finally on Tuesday, one of my employees actually came up to me and asked me point blank to my face. She goes, "Oh my gosh, you look awful. Are you dying?" I looked at her and went, "No, I'm not dying. Like, get back to work." When in fact I actually was.
Right.
Till finally on that Wednesday, January 10th of that year, my boss came up to me and said, "You need to go to the hospital." Because I was jaundiced, my eyes were yellow, my skin was yellow, I was sweaty, and I was not in good shape. And everybody.
And was your liver failing at that point?
Oh yeah, I was at end stage liver failure at that point.
At end stage, 38 years old.
38 years old at end stage liver failure, and
how did you take that news? I mean, did you believe him?
Oh, absolutely not. No. My boss sent me to the hospital. Well, she actually gave me an ultimatum. She said, "Here's your options. I can give you a ride, or I'm just calling 911 and you can go on an ambulance. It's up to you." And of course, being stubborn, I didn't do either. I got myself in a car and I drove myself to the little Minute Clinic next to my house.
Sure.
Yeah, because they're doctors. I walked in and checked myself in.
We're not saying anything wrong about Minute Clinic.
Oh, no.
It's just there's a difference between
Absolutely.
an earache and an emergency.
Absolutely. And that's what the doctor looked at me, and he looked at me and took one glance and said, "What are you doing here? You need a hospital."
Right.
And of course I didn't go. We went home that night. And then I finally went the next day.
Did Jamie talk you into it, or were they encouraging?
No, it was all Jamie that talked me into it. She was actually traveling out of town at the time, and so I called her on my way to the hospital, the little Minute Clinic, and said, "Hey, this is what's going on. I'm headed to the hospital." And she said, "I'm getting in the car." And I tried to talk her out of it because she was working 4 hours away out in New Mexico. And she drove to the hospital, the Minute Clinic with me. And then finally the next day she told me that we need to actually go to an actual hospital.
Okay, so that's good that she got you there.
Absolutely.
Told you you're in liver failure.
So
how much time did they anticipate you had?
2 months. And there were multiple doctors over the course of the next few weeks, because I did the tour of all the hospitals here in town.
Really?
Because multiple doctors told me there was nothing they could do for me. I was beyond repair, and that I needed to get my affairs in order. I had about 2 months.
So how did you go from there to being a recipient, or even a candidate for liver?
Well, there's multiple hurdles that I had. One, I had them as transplant patient. And then I had them because I wasn't sober.
Right. So you're coming into it needing to detox, essentially.
Oh, the first 10 days I was detoxing.
Right.
I don't remember them terribly vividly, those first few days.
Probably better.
Probably. Jamie does, and tells me that I was talking gibberish, hallucinating, talking to people who weren't there. I don't recall all of that, but that's what everybody tells me. And so what ended up really kind of happening was the doctors they would tell you there's nothing we can do. And the reason being is that, well, I guess I'll start here. Transplant patients have a couple of hurdles that they have to go through. For me specifically with liver, it's called a MELD score, right? And it kind of grades you and puts you in a spectrum of how sick you actually are. The lower your number, the healthier, quote unquote, you actually are. And so if you are not sick enough, well, then you can wait for that transplant because somebody else is sick and needs that organ.
Sooner.
Right, correct. Sooner than you do. If you are too sick, well, then you're not going to survive this surgery anyway.
Why give you a liver
Correct.
that could go to
Because
someone
you're not
else?
going to make it. Correct. And because they recover those organs, and those are precious. Those are precious, and there's lots of people that need them. I tended to fall on the I'm too sick side of that spectrum. The other hurdle that I had that I mentioned was I wasn't sober. The only reason I stopped drinking was because I was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That is the sole reason I wasn't drinking, was because I was in the hospital.
We're going to go to a break real quick here. When we come back, we're going to talk about then your recovery journey and then a lot more about the Gratitude and Grace Foundation right after this. And welcome back to Kiki's Keys to Unlocking Your Best Life, sharing stories of people who've been through their worst, are now living their best. And we are talking with Kelly Thrush. He's talking about his worst, was literally in the hospital, dying of liver failure, too sick for the transplant list, detoxing because he was not sober yet. And yet you're here with us today, 7 years later almost.
Almost 7. It'll be 7 in January, which is pretty amazing.
What happened to spare your life?
Well, the way it worked out was that March of 2018, there were 2 doctors, my internal medicine doctors too. They weren't even my hepatologists, right, which are the liver docs. I don't know. They saw something in me and convinced the transplant team that I was worth the risk of going through an operation.
And you were running out of time by days at this point.
Correct. We were down to days. In fact, actually, the day that they told me the news that they had actually recovered an organ for me, my body shut down. I was then actively dying that day.
Wow. What a recovery.
Mm.
First of all, let's talk about the mind, the addiction. What did you use to help keep you sober, aside from the fear of losing this new liver?
There was a lot to it, and that
more.
recovery was hard. Here I am, this new lease on life, this amazing gift that I have been given, and I am not. I had never been sober, at least not in my adult life, anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea how to deal with those tools. And so what I went through, there are many, many programs out there. Most folks are familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous and 12 steps of some sort. I went through what's called Smart Recovery.
Okay.
And it's an organization that's been around since 1994. And we don't do 12 steps. We don't have sponsors, but ultimately the end goal is sobriety. And so we do a lot of things with cognitive behavioral therapy and CBT, right? And so we have meetings once a week. I mean, I don't need to go into the minutiae, I suppose, but there's worksheets and we deal with how to deal and cope with your irrational thoughts. And I'm now actually a facilitator for them as well. So I get to help other folks as they navigate their journey of sobriety, which is amazing to help those folks.
That's, regardless of what program you use, I think an element within each of those programs is when you are there for those who are also going through the addiction or whatever their challenges, that helps keep you on your own path and your own program.
Oh, absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. I mean, if that is a key to my recovery, is helping those other people in need, because it keeps me grounded. Because a lot of times, because let's face it, life is busy. You get to work and you get going, and if you're not focused on your recovery or helping those people in recovery, you can get lost a little bit. At least I can, anyhow.
Well, I'm so glad you're here sharing your story, as well as running this incredible nonprofit here in Tucson called Gratitude and Grace Foundation. It's dedicated to supporting families who are navigating the crisis of transplant and or addiction. Tell us a little bit about what Gratitude and Grace Foundation looks like in action.
Sure. Well, that actually, you touched on it just a minute ago. Me and Jamie needed to give back, and we didn't really know how. And so this idea, because we struggled that first year when I came out of transplant and was in recovery, both sobriety-wise and physically from my surgery.
Right.
Because, financially, we lost my paycheck overnight. It was gone. And so now we're on 50% income trying to live the same life. And actually, I'll say less than 50% income because Jamie wasn't working full time because she had to take care of me.
And on a restaurant bar income to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's why, folks, if you're out there and you're busting your butt in that restaurant, pay yourself first, work with financial advisor, that's so important to have those resources, because if you don't,
Oh yeah,
That's
you have an
common.
emergency, and all of a sudden, and some of these stories I didn't even know, but Jamie would, because I would spend Monday through Friday at my grandmother's house recovering, so Jamie could go to work because she had a regular day job, right?
Nice.
And she would go to work, and I would stay at grandma's house, and my grandmother and my mom would take care of me at that time, and then I would come home over the weekend. Well, during that Monday through Friday, she would turn off the water so that we could save that money.
Okay.
And then she would turn it back on when I came home Friday night so that I could actually take a shower.
That's how much you had to pinch pennies
Correct.
just to get by.
She would turn off the electric the next week. And she would spend or take a shower at my grandma's house or come over there to do whatever it was that she needed, but so that we could save those pennies, really, because we had to. I mean, we absolutely had to. So that's where this foundation came in, and that was the idea of it, is we want to take the struggles that we went through and the tools that we learned, and how can we give those to other people so maybe they don't have to do the way we did it. And so that's what we do. And so Gratitude and Grace, the way it works is we want to provide a community support and financial support for folks that are either have a transplant or received a transplant, or to be honest with you, have given an organ. There are plenty of organ donors, like kidney donors, for example. We want to help them financially and with a community around them of support too. And then folks in substance abuse recovery. And they look different necessarily on how we can help, depending on what they need. So we'll take transplants, for example. And so somebody who has received a transplant, who is not working, who is just simply trying to get healthy again and get back on their feet, but the mortgage is still due and the electric bill is still due, and they still got to go grocery shopping. So they can apply through our website and get a grant for maybe $250 for a gas card for gasoline for that month. Or maybe they get a $500 utility credit, right? So that we'll actually pay the electric company to keep the lights on that month. We'll cut them a check, or we'll pay with our debit card, whatever it is. We'll get it done for them that way. And then with substance abuse, it can look multiple different ways. Maybe it is trying to get them into a program of some sort, whether it's AA or SMART or any of the other ones that are out there. Maybe it's helping them pay for rehab if that's what they have, if that's what they need. There are many, many different ways that we can. And I think the most important way is to bring everybody together. So, for example, the gala that's coming up on the 28th of this year.
Yes, this year,
Right, this
the
month.
Gratitude and Grace Foundation Gala is
Right.
going to be on, that's my Minnesota Gala. September 28th of 2024 at the Westin La Paloma Resort and Spa here in Tucson. People can purchase tickets now. Is there
absolutely.
a website we can direct them to?
It's very simple. Yep, www.gratitudeandgracefoundation.org.
And that's A-N-D, Gratitude and Grace Foundation.org. You can look them up on the website or email them, Kelly at gratitudeandgracefoundation.org. Tell us about who's going to be the keynote sponsor. You have a real
Sure.
special, or not sponsor, keynote speaker
Sure.
at the gala. You're excited about this.
Absolutely. There's a woman named Hillary Phelps who is a dear friend of mine. I have met her through the recovery world, and we're excited to bring her out. She's actually from D.C. area, and she's been in the recovery world now. I think it's been 17 years that she's been sober. And so she takes, same idea, she takes her journey and hopefully can share with others and inspire them to do hard things and to be sober and to do good in the world, all the things that come along with it. And she's going to be our keynote, and she's fantastic. She's an author. She has her own podcast called The Right Room. She's great, and she's a wonderful speaker to listen to.
How fun. And if you can't attend the gala, you can help by sponsoring a family to be able to go, or to also, be those who are corporate sponsors can help out as well. So again, they could probably find that information on your website.
Absolutely. And the family sponsorship's a big one about that community. We want to bring the folks in who make this possible, those donors and participants that we have, and have them meet the people that we actually help. Because that creates a community and a bond that I don't know that you can find in many organizations. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, tell us about some of those family stories. You don't have to give us any names,
Sure.
but tell us about some of the recipients of Gratitude and Grace.
Sure. Let's think. So recently, there was a young lady who was a transplant recipient who then, because as a transplant recipient too, you're very immune compromised.
Right.
I'm on immunosuppressants now for the rest of my life. And she needed another surgery coming up, and there was going to be out-of-pocket costs that was well, I don't know if it was, but could have prevented her from getting that surgery. So the hospital reached out to us. We kind of did all the forms that we have to do. And within a matter of days, we were able to pay those fees that she owed so that she can get that procedure.
And how are you doing? It's been almost 7 years. You went from a very unhealthy lifestyle to now being an ultra marathon runner. Tell us how that's going.
Oh, life is amazing. It is better now than I ever could have imagined it was. Everything about life is better on this side of sobriety. Yeah, ultra marathons. Yeah, well, who would have thunk it? Not me. I hated running. Are you
So
kidding?
what does an ultra marathon consist of?
So technically speaking, an ultra distance is anything over a marathon. And a
Okay.
marathon is 26.2 miles. Generally, a 50K, which is 31 miles, is generally the minimum. And so those are the distances that I like to run. Anything that is super hard.
And is that part of your sobriety program too, doing that physical exercise?
Not officially, but it is absolutely how I stay sober and part of it. It's one of the tools I have.
Right.
Because you're out there in the middle of the woods or the desert, and it's just me and me. It's me and my thoughts and me and my footfalls and me and my breath.
And last thing before we conclude today, thank you so much for being on the show, Kelly. That's Kelly Thrush, by the way, KellyThrush. And the organization is Gratitude and Grace Foundation. Their gala is coming up on September 28th. What does living your best life mean to you?
It is positively affecting those people around you in any way you can.
Well, you are definitely doing that, just even by sharing your story over the air with us today, as well as your organization. Thank you for all that you do. Again, folks, that's Kelly Thrush with the Gratitude and Grace Foundation. You can find them online at gratitudeandgracefoundation.org. And this is Kiki with Kiki's Keys to Unlocking Your Best Life. You can find us on our website at www.kikiskeys.life, on YouTube at Kiki's Keys Life, or Facebook Kiki's Keys. And go out and be the best version that you can be, because nobody else can do it better than you. Have a wonderful week, folks, and we will talk to you next week. I was just saying I was supposed to go on for 30 more seconds, and I kind of froze there, so I was telling Tom in the booth, sorry for running a little short.